All right. Hi again, Hawks. Missed you guys. We're going to take another dive into the Odyssey. So far we have read two episodes in part two of the Odyssey. We read Odysseus's coming home episode, episode 8, and we also read episode 9, Argus. Rip Argus. What a good boy. Ultimate good boy. And in episode 8, just for a little recap, we heard Odysseus and Telemachus making a plan to take out all of the suitors who have been in Odysseus's home, eating up his food, chatting up his wife, plotting to kill his son, the huge. So Telemachus and Odysseus have made this plan. Telemachus will go home. He'll chat up all the suitors. He'll count up how many of them there are. And he'll make sure that all of the weapons in the Great Hall, which is like this big room that normally would have weapons everywhere, that all the weapons get put away except for swords and shields and spears enough for Telemachus and Odysseus to fight. And of course, they were counting on Athena to help them as well. And Zeus, she has promised Zeus would help as well. So Telemachus is meant to go home and make all that happen. Meanwhile, Odysseus is going to come disguised as the old beggar man again and see how the suitors interact with him in that way. And Telemachus is supposed to not react or not do anything if the suitors treat his father poorly. So we're going to see for the first time what kind of men they are that are living in Penelope's house, in Odysseus's house. And we'll get to see Penelope. So for this episode, we are reading episode 10, and it is entitled The Suitors. So we're going to read along as usual. And I'll stop every once in a while to ask you a few questions. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you. Ooh, yeah. Okay, so the suitors. Still disguised as a beggar, Odysseus enters his home. He is confronted by the haughty suitor Antinous. Now this time, haughty doesn't mean like, ooh, you so fine. Haughty. Haughty means like arrogant and like full of themselves, very self-centered. But here Antinous broke in, shouting, God, what evil wind blew in this pest? Get over, stand in the passage. Nudge my table, will you? Egyptian whips are sweet compared to what you'll come to you here, you nosing rat, making your pitch to everyone. These men have bread to throw away on you because it is not theirs. Who cares? Who spares another's food when he has more than plenty? With guile, Odysseus drew away, then said, A pity that you have more looks than heart. You'd grudge a pinch of salt from your own larder to your own handyman? You sit here fat on others' meats and cannot bring yourself to rummage out a crust of bread for me? So that means that when Odysseus, as a beggar, came in, he was begging, right? He was asking for food. And he nudged Antinous's table. He just bumped it a little bit. And Antinous throws a fit. He insults the beggar, who we all know is Odysseus, except he doesn't. Insults the beggar, calls him a rat, calls him a piece of trash, threatens him, says that Egyptian whips would feel better than what I'll give to you if you don't figure out your place. And he says, I have more than enough food. It's not even my food, but I'm still not going to give you any. So Antinous is proving to be a real big jerk. Now, there's something that he's doing right here that is seriously incorrect when we think about the values of a Greek society. So think for a hot second. What value is it that Antinous is disregarding? What Greek value is it that Antinous is not honoring? And so hopefully you said the idea of Xenia. And because he is not honoring his guest, because he is um, treating Odysseus very poorly, some of the other fellas, some of the other suitors are going to have a little bit of an issue with that. So let's continue reading here. So we left off on line 1224. Then anger made Antinous' heart beat hard, and glowering under his brows, he answered, "Now you think you'll shuffle off and get away after that impudence? Oh, no, you don't." The stool he let fly hit the man's right shoulder on the packed muscle under the shoulder blade, like solid rock for all the effect one saw. Odysseus only shook his head, containing thoughts of bloody work as he walked on, then sat and dropped his loaded bag again upon the doorsill. Facing the whole crowd, he said, and eyed them all. "One word only, my lords and suitors of the famous queen. One thing I have to say. There is no pain, no burden for the heart when blows come to a man and he is defending his own cattle, his own cows and lambs. Here, it was otherwise. Antinous hit me for being driven on by hunger. How many bitter seas men cross for hunger? If beggars interest the god, if there are furies pent in the dark to avenge a poor man's wrong, then may Antinous meet his death before his wedding day." Then said Euryphes' son Antinous, "Enough. Eat and be quiet where you are, or shamble elsewhere, unless you want these lads to stop your mouth by pulling you at the heels, or hands and feet over the whole floor until your back is peeled." But now the rest were mortified, and some spoke from the crowd of young bucks to rebuke him. "Poor show that, hitting this famished tramp. Bad business if he happened to be a god. You know they go in foreign guise, the gods do, looking like strangers, turning up in towns and settlements to keep an eye on manners, good or bad." But at this notion, Antinous only shrugged. So Antinous has picked up a piece of furniture, a stool, and thrown it and hit Odysseus, who is still disguised as an old beggar man, hit Odysseus on the shoulder with it. And Odysseus says, "Not cool, bro. Like, it's one thing if you're defending your house or your cattle or your family, but that was uncalled for." And some of the other men, some of the other suitors in the house agree with him. And they say, "Antinous, what if he was a god? You treated him that way. What if it was Zeus in disguise as this old beggar man?" And that should make us remember another one of those Greek terms. So what is that term that here Antinous is showing? Or when a person thinks themselves superior to the gods or acts in some way like they are better than the gods. So hopefully you remember that that term is called hubris. So Antinous is definitely showing hubris. He does not care. He does not give a flying flip who this old man is, because he seems to be far superior. So he's thrown a chair at Odysseus, not knowing that he's actually dealing with Odysseus himself. He just thinks he's mistreating some poor old beggar man. All right, let's finish our episode. So we left off at the very top of this page. Telemachus, after the blow his father bore, sat still without a tear, though his heart felt the blow. Slowly he shook his head from side to side, containing murderous thoughts. Penelope, on the higher level of her room, had heard the blow and knew who gave it. Now she murmured, "Would God you could be hit yourself, Antinous, hit by Apollo's bow shot." And Eurynomy, her housekeeper, put in, "He and no other? If all we pray for came to pass, not one would live till dawn." Her gentle mistress said, "Oh, Nan, they are a bad lot. They intend to ruin for all of us. But Antinous appears a blacker-hearted hound than any. Here's a poor man come, a wanderer. driven by want to beg his bread, and everyone in hail gave bits to cram his bag, only Antinous threw a stool and banged his shoulder. So she described it, sitting in her chamber among her maids, while her true lord was eating. Then she called in the forester and said, "Go to that man on my behalf, Eumaeus, and send him here so I can greet and question him. Abroad in the great world, he may have heard rumors about Odysseus, may have known him." So Penelope is taking none of the suitors. She does not like them in her house and makes it clear. She and her maid, her housekeeper, your enemy, are both talking about how they wish all of them would just up and die. And she requests that she be able to talk to this old beggar man because she has a question about him. Why don't you respond to me, please, and make sure that you understand why is it that Penelope wants to speak to the beggar? So Penelope really wants to talk to this man. Now, she does not know it's her husband, but she thinks maybe this beggar man traveling around everywhere has heard something about Odysseus or has even met him. Because remember, this entire time, Penelope is faithful to her husband. She is convinced that he's still alive, that he'll still come back for her one day. And she's never given up on him. So hopefully, by talking to this stranger who's come to her home, by greeting him properly and offering him hospitality, she might find something out about her husband. Alrighty, next up is the episode about Penelope.